Hi, and welcome to this week's Intentional Wealth Update with Morton Brown Family Wealth. I'm Katie Brown, and I have Cody Demmel here with me today.
Hey, how are you?
Good. So, Cody, you're checking in from sunny Ohio today.
It actually is pretty sunny, but it was pretty cold this morning and last night. The fall is definitely kicking in. I feel like we're kind of actually skipping fall a little bit and going straight to winter.
Yeah, it was interesting when we came out of our house this morning. My kids were enamored by the frost that covered the grass. So we want to talk about financial planning. That is at the heart of what we do here at Morton Brown. And we realized kind of from a high level, we haven't talked too much about our approach to it. And we came across a couple of articles that fit really well into this conversation. The first one is actually a blog post from a podcast with Michael Kitces and Carl Richards, where they discuss some fears why advisors and also why clients may not start the financial planning process. Cody, what were some of the highlighted fears that they talked about?
Yeah. Oh, I think the most important fear that they brought up is that advisors just thought they had to be right about everything, but they dove into the fact that it's not about being right about everything. It's more about just giving guidance to make the right decisions, being able to make decisions that's going to help the plan moving forward. And it is, as I said, it's not about being right for everything, but about making less wrong decisions.
Yes, that's a really good point because we can't know. There are way too many factors that go into a plan, some in our control, some outside of our control, but there's no possible way to be right about everything. And we'll sometimes do this in our projections where we say, okay, well, what if the investment performance is changed by just 1% or inflation by 0.5%? And all of a sudden, the range of portfolio values and the trajectory can change significantly. So it isn't about being right. And then how does that play into, the client perspective? I think sometimes we kind of hear some apprehension from some individuals about starting the planning process.
Yeah, I think that definitely goes into the client side of things too. Maybe they're scared as we go through the plan, depending on what the plan outlook looks like. On the static plan, they may think they have to work a lot longer than they plan to, or they don't think they can spend as much as what we were hoping, or maybe they can't buy that vacation house that they were hoping. But again, this is just normally the static plan, and we go through the financial plan to see what's some incremental changes we could make to try to get you to those goals. And again, obviously everything's going to change moving forward. So it's more about just having it down on paper and being able to see, okay, if we change this little thing, how does it help the projection moving forward?
Right. It's figuring out those guardrails,
Yeah.
which is interesting because that's language I think that we often use when we sit down too, is we don't know exactly what that line is going to look like, but if we can figure out where those guardrails are at and make sure that we're trending in the right direction, then that's half the battle. And that was a lot of what Michael Kitces had talked about too, very specifically those guardrails. And I think that's a helpful framework. Another reason why the planning is so important is because it allows you to address that uncertainty. We know there's going to be uncertainty, which may hold people back from putting the plan together. But the reality is, if you spend the time building a platform or a foundation, then it really helps to support addressing that uncertainty that will inevitably come up. So embracing that and building it into the plan is a really good step forward. I know it's interesting to get some of the feedback from clients. What do you sometimes hear in the planning conversations?
I honestly think sometimes when we go through the plan, I think they find it a lot more helpful than what they thought it was going to be, especially at the end when we go through what's called the decision center and e-money, where we build out different scenarios. Okay, if you did this, if you saved a little more, maybe if you worked a year longer, or in some certain stances, maybe if you retired a year or two before you thought you could, and they're still perfectly fine. I think it's very helpful, and clients find that part very helpful moving forward.
Yeah, those scenarios are good because I think sometimes people are a little hesitant to start the planning process because they feel like they have to have their goals fully formed. They feel like they have to come forward and say, okay, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, and show me what it looks like. It's nice to have an idea, but it's unrealistic to map out what's going to happen, which I think is the other part of our job as we say, all right, we're going to go over a plan today, but we recognize it's changing tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. And so our job from here on out is to help you change the plan. And that's okay, but we need, kind of a basis of where to start from. And that's really important.
Yep, exactly.
So then there was another piece, actually, Cody, that you have pulled on 9 reasons to start the planning process.
Yeah, so I mean, the article went through 9 different reasons. Most of them are reasons that everybody would think of. You obviously can't work for forever. Maybe you want to make sure your spending level is accurate of what you can spend in retirement, getting ahead of the schedule. So starting as soon as possible for a savings towards a specific goal. It doesn't have to be retirement, but maybe it's a vacation house, funding, education. Those are some of the reasons that they went over.
I think one of the most important things in goal setting is to actually say it out loud, write it down, put it out there. Because once you start that process, then you have something to work towards. One of the reasons that I loved in that piece was to be able to live out your bucket list and to think expansively about your bucket list. That's the exciting part of retirement.
Oh yeah, and I think that's one of the things that are really helpful in the financial plan too. Is they can see a lot of the people that are getting close to retirees. They can spend a lot more in those first 10 to 15 years when you're able to go out and travel, knowing probably later in life you won't be traveling as much, so you can spend a lot more the earlier years, and then eventually level off and still be perfectly fine, have enough assets to live the way that you want. So whether it's a very increased travel expense for the first 10 to 15 years, but being able to project those out in the financial plans helpful. I think it gives the clients a peace of mind too, because I know we've came into circumstances where clients don't want to spend as much as they really can, because it's a completely different mindset once you get to retirement.
Yes, we definitely talked a lot about that. Those projections are really helpful too, because they start to build that trend line so that when they get to the point of spending more, as we're consistently checking in on it, and as we say, the numbers will change constantly, but are we trending in the right direction? And if we see something that's plotted out, 20 years down the road that might be a risk to them, what tiny little tweak can we make now so that risk is minimized, and really paying attention to how those trends are, because we don't want anybody's lifestyle to suddenly feel different or suddenly be different because of something going on. And so the planning really helps to smooth out some of those changes.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main things. And I think it's very helpful for the client to see it on a picture too, and not just, okay, like on a spreadsheet and this is what would change, but actually see it projected out. I think it's a helpful thing to see.
Yeah. So we hope that, as you guys are thinking about, all right, is it time to revisit my plan? Or I don't have a plan in place, it might be time to put something down. Definitely encourage you to start the process, because it's all about starting, and then, embracing that uncertainty, recognizing there's the uncertainty. It's not going to be 100% accurate, but figuring out those guardrails and those trend lines, that's going to get you 85% of the way there. And then the rest of it is just being nimble and being flexible and making sure to build that in. Thank you so much for joining us for this Intentional Wealth update. And as always, if you have any questions, feedback, or even topics that you'd like us to discuss, we definitely encourage you to reach out. You can reach us at www.mortonbrownfw.com. Take care.
Bye.